Hey Kodos, what's up? Hope you are doing great. In this video, we're going to discuss about the most important topics of all the tech stacks, starting with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Node, Express, MongoDB, Python, Java, and SQL. Before getting started, do like, share, and subscribe to my channel to get like-minded videos. Let's get started. Starting with HTML and CSS, we have topics like elements. In elements, we can learn about header elements, paragraph elements, and button elements. Coming to the tags, we'll get a deep understanding on image tag, span tag, and the table tag. Coming to the attributes, we can learn about a attribute and input attribute and video attributes like reference attribute, type attribute, and source attribute. Coming to the containers, we have a div container, section container, or main container. Coming to list, we can learn about ordered list, unordered list, and so on. With the hyperlinks, we can learn about reference, anchor, hyperlink. Coming to void elements, we can learn about VR tag and HR tag. These are void elements which don't have an end tag. CSS box model, we can learn about the padding, margin, border, and the content. Coming to text properties, we have font weight, text transform, text decoration, and letter spacing. Coming to viewport, we can learn about the meta tag, where the height and width of a DOM container is known as a viewport. Coming to the border properties, we can learn about border radius, the dotted or the color to the border. And background properties, we have a background color, background image, and a background repeat, and so on. We can learn about these things. Next, box properties, we have width, maximum width, and minimum height of the box properties, and so on. Coming to flexbox class names, we have a display flex, like justify content between, and the flex column, and the align items to the center. These type of things we can learn inside the flexbox class names. And Bootstrap grid systems, we all know that we have a row column facing Bootstrap grid system. Like class is equal to row, and the class has a column large, column extra large. These things can be covered inside the Bootstrap grid system. Responsive breakpoints are like breaking the content to view on the mobile device, like small, large, medium, and extra large. And Bootstrap spacing utilities, we have like a medium space and paragraph equal to 5. The space is divided with 0.5. And CSS selectors, we have a hashtag, dot, and a name selector. And specificity, each specificity includes which has a priority to be considered in the CSS, like inline styles, ID selectors, and the class selectors. Coming to the gradients, we have a linear gradient, radial gradient, and so on. Using gradient, we can divide the 2 or more colors in the background. These are the most important topics where we can take the screenshot for your reference. Here we have a JavaScript. like JavaScript is a core tech stack, so we have included close to 25 topics in JavaScript, starting with DOM manipulations. Like DOM manipulations, we have HTML elements like dynamically styling using JavaScript, like get element by ID, get element by class name, and so on. In object destructuring, extracting the values from objects and assigning them to variables. Next, with hoisting, moving variables and function declarations to the top of the scope. We learn from the hoisting. Let, where, and const are three variable declaration methods or keywords for declaring variables with different scoping rules. Lexical scope, the scope where a variable is defined and based on the physical location of the code. Next, event handlers and listeners. These are the functions that respond on user interactions with the elements. Event loop is like a mechanism to handle the asynchronous operations in the JavaScript. And types of functions, we have a function declaration, function expression, and so on. Local storage, session storage, and cookies are mainly used to handle the browser storage for saving the data. Next, with closures, we can learn functions that return access to their outer scope of the function. In asynchronous functions, these are like execute non-blocking tasks. In promises, an object is representing a future value or a failure of an asynchronous operations. We use promises. Async and await, syntax for handling asynchronous code. Next, callback. A callback function is passed as an argument to executed later. Global functions and block scope. The accessibility of variables depending on where they are declared. You can learn from the scope. Map, filter, and reduce are also important topics where we can include array methods for transformations and aggregations. Polyfills, we have three types of polyfills like call, apply, and bind. These will add a modern features that can be used in the functions. In errors, we have multiple types of errors in JavaScript like a reference error, type error, or the syntax error. Debugging on the browser is a main challenge we face by building the front-end application. We need to understand the entire development tools on the browser, like going to inspect and learning about the network applications and the storage functionalities. How to debug on the browser, and higher order functions that take other functions as an argument and return values. Currying is another important topic, like breaking a function into a series of functions that each take a single argument. Execution context and the call text, where these two things are involved in a debugging on the browser. Environment where a code is executed and order of execution is can learn from execution context. Error handling, we can use a call, try catch, and finally blocks to handle a particular error. Prototypes and prototype chaining can be considered as an important topic, like a mechanism for inheritance in JavaScript through objects. Take a screenshot of these topics for your reference. Next, starting with React. Like state, a built-in object in React components for managing the data and the components rendering. Next, props, like it is used to pass data from parent component to the child component. Next component, it is a reusable place of UI in the React. Next, class and functional component. These are two methods by writing the functions in JavaScript. JavaScript functions in the React. Like class component use a class syntax and the state, while functional components are simple functions. Lifecycle methods, we have mounting, unmounting and updating, 3 parts in the lifecycle methods. We can learn from the React. JSX is like a JavaScript syntax extension for creating a React elements. JavaScript XML, like writing the HTML form of code in the React. In React, we have virtual DOM, a lightweight representation of a real world DOM for efficient updates. In router, it is like a React router for navigation in a single page. By navigating from one page to the another page, we can run from the routers. Hooks are mainly used in the functional components, like including the lifecycle methods inside the functional components. We use hooks. Redux, it is a state management library for predictable state changes. One state to another state. You can learn from the Redux. Context API, a React feature for sharing the data between the components without any prop. JWT token, like a JavaScript web token. It is mainly used for securely transmitting the information between parties. This will use mostly in authentication and authorization of a login page. Single page application, the entire React is made use of a single page application, like an application with one HTML page where contents updates dynamically using JavaScript. Authentication is a verifying a user's identity coming to the login page. Authorization is like a granting a permission based on the user's roles. It is like a authorization, like a login. When we signed up to an application, there will get a login page with our ID and password. It comes under authorization. Like higher order components, a function that takes a component and returns a new enhanced component that can be learned from a higher order components. Like React fragments, it is a way to group elements without adding extra DOM nodes. It is similar to div element in the HTML. Prop dealing and state management solutions are like passing props through multiple layers in the context. Custom hooks means we can learn multiple types of hooks in React, and we can also include the custom hooks like reusable functions for extracting the logic in the functional components. Server-side rendering means generates a page on each request. Static site generation means it builds the time to generate an application. These are the main topics in React. Take a screenshot for your reference. Coming to backend, we have Node.js and Express.js, and the topics that we need to prepare for backend interviews are like modules and packages, where we need to install before getting started, like npm install. Modules are like reusable components that we can use inside the code and adding the collections. Next, file systems are like Node.js modules for the file operations. Next, path and modules, OS modules are like provides the system information. Next, event emitters are like handles events in the Node.js applications. Buffer and streams are like binary data which process the data chunks. HTTP modules are also most important to learn to handle the HTTP server and request. Child process are like modules to execute the external process or scripts. Error handling is also a very important concept in Node.js part, like techniques to handle the runtime errors using try-catch block, as we have discussed in the JavaScript. Asynchronous programming is like executing the task without blocking the main thread. And authentication and authorizations are like verifying the user authenticated or not using the JWT token, as we have discussed in the React concepts. Express basics are like a web framework for building the Node.js applications. Is like a backend framework for Node.js. Functions executed during the request response are like middleware. Routing the parameters, like dynamic parameters in the routes, like navigating from one page to the another page. Error handling in Express is also handled using the middleware or routes. Request and responses of objects are handled using the HTTP requests and response. Template engines are like engines for generating the dynamic HTML. Cluster and work threads. These are the threads for modules or multi-threading and process management in Node.js. Coming to process management, we have managing the Node.js process using tools like PM2 or built-in modules. Database integration is also very important thing that we need to learn in the full stack applications, where we can handle the data of a user or any application of examples like a SQL or a MongoDB, NoSQL database. We need to include the connecting the Node.js apps to the databases. Real-time communication is like communication between server and client without page reloads or lazy loading. These are the concepts that we need to learn for the backend interviews or to get hands-on Node.js and Express.js. As mentioned, take a screenshot for your reference. Going next, we have MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database, which is very important to create objects in the list form. So we have, starting with a NoSQL database basics, are like a scalability and the flexibility of the database and creating the schema. Document structure are like a JSON, how the objects are in the handled with the help of JSON form. JavaScript object notation form. Like collections and dynamic schema means a collection is a group of documents, or a dynamic schema allow various structures. Data modeling are like designing how a data is stored, ensuring the scalability and performance of the data. You can learn from the data modeling. Coming to indexing, it is a mechanism to improve query performance by creating the data structure. Creating the create operations, these things are all know, like we will create, read, update, delete are the CRUD operations that we have already learned in the SQL part. All the database will have the same operations, but the syntax is different. Coming to aggregation framework, it is like a powerful way to process and analyze the data in stages. Transactions are like ensure the data is consistency across multiple operations. Geospatial queries, it is a topic that we need to have the queries to find based on the location coordinates. Text search is like another searching operation in the database, like a full text search or capabilities in the documents. Sharding are like distributing the data across multiple servers for scalability. Replication is like maintaining the copies of the same data across multiple servers for redundancy. Write concerns and read preferences are like writing a concerns determine write guarantee or read preferences throughout the data. Schema design best practices are like guidelines to creating the optimal data storage, such as embedding or referencing the data. Profiling and monitoring are like tracking and analyzing the data performance. Security features that need to be included while creating the data are like protect the database and such as authentication and encryption of the data. Backup and restore is also an important thing that we need to learn in the database, like ensuring the data safety by creating and recovering the database backups. That's all about all these topics that we need to learn in the NoSQL database, MongoDB. Take a screenshot for your reference. Now we are in programming part, starting with Python, and the topics that we need to prepare in the Python are data types, like categories of the data types, like int, float, character and double. These will not be included in the Python, so better to learn if you are a beginner programmer. And like conditional statements, like executed the code based on the conditions like if, else, while and for loops. Strings, like a sequence of characters, and the calculations, like basic calculations like sum, multiplications and subtractions, how these things will be performed with a single statement in the print functions. Next, string methods, like built-in methods, how to perform with the string, like length of the string and uppercase or the strip. Operators, like arithmetic operators, comparison and or the logical operators. Coming to loops, for loop, while loop. Next, with the list, it is a collection of items stored in the specific order, and the functions, how to write a particular functions like block of reusable code. Sets, it is an unordered collection of unique items. Tuples, immutable orders or the collection of items. Dictionaries, it is also an very important topic in the Python to learn about the dictionaries. Key value pairs for storing the data. And the scopes defines the visibility and the lifetime of a variable, which is inside the function scope or the block scope or the global scope. Classes, like a template for creating objects with attributes and methods, which is a class. And the object-oriented programming concepts are like multiple concepts like inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism and abstraction. And errors and execution exceptions are like errors to distribute the program, and the exceptions handle the errors gracefully, like using the try-catch block. File handling, like reading, writing and manipulating the files. Modules and packages are also most important to include in the Python codes, like packages and collections of the modules. Decorators are like modifying the behavior of a function or the method. Generators and iterators are like values, and lazily iterators access the items sequentially. These things, and there are also more important concepts in Python to handle the development objects, like development tasks and the automation part. These things are enough for the beginner interview on Python. Take a screenshot for the reference. Coming to next, Java. It is also a very good programming language where you can start with data types and variables. Here Java is a secure language, so we need to include the data types prior to the creating the variable. Int, string, char and double. And the operators and control statements are like performing the operations and managing the program flow. Oops concepts are also very important in the Java, where you can start with the inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism and encapsulation. Class and methods is a class is a blueprint and the object is a instance of class. By using object we can create multiple class. By using class we can create multiple objects. Strings and string manipulations are like a sequence of characters and manipulating the strings using string methods. Collection framework is also provides data structures like a list, set, and map. These things comes under collection framework. Generics are like enables the type safety in the classes and methods. Exception handling is also very crucial topic in Java, where we can get a lot of exceptions to handle using try-catch blocks. Java input-output methods are like APIs for file and data stream operations. Multi-threading and concurrency are like running multiple threads to execute a task concurrently. Lambda expressions are also very concise syntax to define a single method functions. Streams APIs are like provides a function approach to process data streams. Optional class is a container object to handle null values safely. Functional interfaces are like with a single abstract method used inside the lambdas. Date and time APIs for APIs to handle the date and time. JVM, JRE and JDK are like a Java virtual machine, Java runtime environment and Java development kit. These three things are very important in learning the Java. How the Java code is executed on the backend. Like source code, starting with the source code to the execution part. The entire life cycle can be understood inside the Java virtual machine. Java code and JRE provides a runtime and JDK is the development kit. Compiles with the JDK with the java file and run with JVM. Memory management and garbage collection. These two things are also very important in Java, where we can learn about the garbage collection. Like Java automatically manages memory and removes unused objects. Unused objects can be pushed to garbage collections. Annotations are like a metadata to provide information to compile or runtime. Java networking like communicating with the people who are learned with Java and enables communication between devices. Design patterns in Java are like standard solutions to common software design problems. Designing based on the overview given by the developer. That's all about the Java topics. Take a screenshot for your reference. Moving next, we have SQL, which is a very important concept that we need to learn in the RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. SQL is a very vastly used database language. Starting with the CRUD operations, as we know, already discussed in the MongoDB, create, read, update, delete operations can be performed in the databases. Similar to the MongoDB, we will also use the CRUD operations in SQL. Moving next, we have a data types. Define the kind of data that a column can hold, like a integer data or varchar or the date. Date is also a data type. Insert functions like add a new records to a table. Retrieve function used to retrieve data from a table. Alter modifies the database table structure. Comparison operators like equal to, lesser than or greater than comparison operators can also be learned in the SQL. String operators like used to manipulate the strings. In and between operations are like filters data by a set of values or a range. Order by and distinct sorts data and removes duplicates. Distinct operators will not carry a unique variable. Aggregations and group by are like sum, count, average with a grouping. Alias is like temporary name for a column or a table. Having clause will filter grouped data. Functions are like built-in functions used in the operations like upper, round. These are built-in functions used in SQL. Set assigns a value in SQL. ER model means a visual representation of a database entities and relationships. Cardinality ratio or like defines the relationship between entities in terms of numbers, 1 to 1, 1 to many, or many to many, or many to one. Relationships can be handled inside the cardinality ratio. Primary key and foreign key are like uniquely identifies the rows, or the foreign key establishes relation between two tables. Joins are also very major topic in SQL. Combines rows from multiple tables. Views are like a virtual table based on the query. Subqueries can also be handled inside SQL like a nested queries within a main query. Transactions are like a sequence of operations performed as a single logical unit. Indexes can also be used to improve the performance of the query by creating data structures. DDL, DML, DCL, DQL are like all the queries that can be used but derived into different parts like a data definition language, data manipulation language, data query language. Coming to DDL, we have create as an example. Coming to DML, we have insert, and DCL we have select, and DQL select. That's all about the SQL that we need to learn the topics. Take a screenshot for your reference. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Do like, share and subscribe to my channel, and check the links in the description, and follow me on LinkedIn. Bye.